fractured foundations. The community center's windows reflected the evening sun as Olivia Reed collected her notes after the grief support group session. At 32, she'd built a reputation as one of the most empathetic counselors in Pinewood. Her copper hair was pulled back in a practical bun, and the constant furrow between her brows had become a permanent fixture after years of absorbing others' pain. "Ms. Reed?" She looked up to see Julian Mercer lingering by the doorway. He'd joined the group 3 weeks ago, and though he rarely spoke, his presence commanded attention, not from any desire to be noticed, but from the palpable weight of grief he carried. "Julian, please come in." She gestured to the chair across from her desk. He sat with the careful movements of someone trying not to disturb the air around them. "I wanted to apologize for leaving early tonight." "No apology needed. These sessions are voluntary. It's not that." Julian ran a hand through his salt and pepper hair. At 45, the premature gray suited him, giving distinguished lines to a face weathered by recent tragedy. When Teresa mentioned how her son still sets a place at dinner for his father, it was too much. Olivia nodded. "Your daughter's still doing the same?" Penny's 14. Old enough to understand her mother's gone, young enough to hope that maintaining rituals might bring her back. His voice cracked. "I don't have the heart to correct her." Olivia's training told her to maintain professional distance, but something about Julian's quiet dignity made her lean forward. "Sometimes those rituals are necessary stepping stones. They'll evolve as she does. That's just it. I don't know how to help her evolve when I'm stuck in the same place myself." The evening light cast long shadows across the room, creating an intimacy that felt both protective and dangerous. Olivia recognized the warning signs, the way her heart quickened when he spoke, how she found herself looking for him at each session. "Penny's at that age where even small changes feel like earthquakes," Julian continued. "Last week I tried making her mother's lasagna recipe. You'd think I'd committed a crime." Olivia smiled despite herself. "Teenagers have a finely tuned sense of detecting imposters, even in pasta form." His laugh was unexpected, breaking through the gravity that seemed to follow him. "She called it an offense to Italian cuisine everywhere. Her mother was half Italian, very particular about her herbs." "Tell me about her, your wife," Olivia said, then immediately regretted it. This wasn't a session. She shouldn't be asking. Julian studied her face, perhaps weighing the same professional boundaries she was questioning. Sophia was vibrant. The kind of person who made everyone feel like the most interesting human in the room. Olivia nodded, recognizing the description. She'd been the same kind of counselor once before burnout had dulled her edges. The cancer took 2 years. By the end, Penny and I were already grieving someone who was still there. "Anticipatory grief can be more complicated than people realize," Olivia said softly. Julian checked his watch. "I should go. Penny's waiting at her friend's house." He stood, hesitating. "Does it get easier? Not the grief, I know that never really leaves, but functioning around it?" The question hung between them, personal, not professional. Olivia thought of her own losses. The divorce that had left her questioning her ability to recognize genuine connection, the miscarriage that followed, grief she'd never properly addressed. "You build a life around it," she finally said. "The grief becomes part of your architecture instead of the wrecking ball." Julian nodded, his eyes meeting hers with unexpected intensity. "Thank you, Ms. Reed." "Olivia," she corrected, knowing as she said it that this small concession marked something significant. "Olivia," he repeated, the name sounding different in his voice. After he left, she sat alone in the dimming light, wondering why this particular client had slipped past her carefully constructed professional barriers and whether she had the strength to rebuild them. Blurred boundaries. 2 months passed, and autumn painted Pinewood in amber and gold. Olivia found herself looking forward to Thursdays, when Julian would arrive early for his individual session before the group meeting. What had begun as by the book, grief counseling had evolved into conversations that strayed beyond professional parameters, discussions about books they both loved, their shared appreciation for jazz, their parallel experiences of loss. Penny got the lead in the school play. Julian announced one Thursday, settling into the now familiar chair in Olivia's office. Pride illuminated his features. It's the first time she's shown interest in anything since Sophia died. That's wonderful progress, Olivia said, making a note in his file, though she knew she wouldn't need it to remember this detail. Which play? Our Town. She's Emily. He smiled ruefully. Bit on the nose considering the character dies young, but Penny says she feels connected to her mother through it. Olivia set down her pen. That's incredibly insightful for her age. She asked if you could come. The words tumbled out before Julian could reconsider them. He quickly added, to the performance. She says you're the reason she feels brave enough to try. The request hung between them, a clear step across a boundary that had been steadily eroding. Julian, I don't think. I know it's inappropriate, he interrupted. Forget I mentioned it. Olivia studied him, noting the new life in his eyes that hadn't been there when they'd first met. She wondered how much of her own healing had come from these sessions. I could attend as a community member, she found herself saying. Not as your counselor. Many people from the center go to support local events. The smile that spread across Julian's face made her heart flip traitorously in her chest. That evening, during the group session, Olivia caught herself watching Julian more than the others, the way he now engaged, offering insights to newer members, the gentle strength in his hands as he gestured. When their eyes met across the circle, something electric passed between them. After everyone left, Julian lingered, helping her stack chairs. Their fingers brushed as they reached for the same chair, and neither pulled away immediately. I should go, he finally said, though he made no move toward the door. Yes, Olivia agreed, equally stationary. The community center janitor's arrival broke the moment. Julian departed with a simple, "Good night, Olivia," but the way he said her name carried weight that kept her awake long into the night. The following Tuesday, Olivia received a call from the high school counselor. Penny had mentioned during a session that her father seemed different since meeting Olivia. The implied question was clear, and Olivia felt a cold flush of shame. The relationship is strictly professional, she assured her colleague, wondering if the lie was obvious. That weekend, Olivia attended Penny's play, sitting far from Julian, but all too aware of his presence. Penny's performance was transformative, a girl channeling grief into art. At the final curtain, Olivia found herself weeping. She was hurrying toward the exit when Julian intercepted her. Thank you for coming, he said, his voice low. It meant everything to her. She was brilliant, Olivia replied, conscious of curious glances from other parents. Would you, he began, then reformulated. Penny and I usually get ice cream after performances, a tradition from before. Would you join us? As a friend? Friend. The word was both a demotion from the tension building between them and a promotion beyond the client-counselor relationship. It was inappropriate by any professional standard. I'd like that, she said anyway. At the ice cream parlor, watching Penny enthusiastically describe the backstage drama to an attentive Julian, Olivia saw what she'd been missing, not just romantic, connection, but family. When Penny turned to include her in the conversation, asking her opinion with genuine interest, Olivia felt a dangerous hope blooming. As they walked to their cars afterward, Penny ran ahead to talk with a castmate, leaving them alone. This feels right, Julian said quietly. Being with you feels right. Olivia watched Penny laughing with her friend. That's what makes it so complicated. I know, he acknowledged, but I'm not your client anymore. Olivia turned to him, startled. What do you mean? I called the center director this morning. I've transferred to Dr. Patterson's group. The revelation hit her like a physical force. Relief and dismay battled within her. Julian, you didn't have to. I did, he said simply. Because what I feel for you has nothing to do with grief anymore. When his hand found hers in the darkness, she didn't pull away. The precipice. The December air bit at Olivia's cheeks as she hurried up the path to Julian's front door, a gift-wrapped book under her arm, Penny's Christmas present, carefully selected. 2 months of this precarious balance. No longer counselor, and client not exactly friends, but something unnamed and growing. They'd been careful, meeting in neighboring towns for coffee, taking Penny to movies as a group, maintaining plausible deniability. The Professional Ethics Board would still consider it inappropriate, too soon after the therapeutic relationship, too clearly a boundary violation, but Olivia had convinced herself they were doing nothing wrong. Julian was healing, Penny was thriving, and Olivia, for the first time in years, felt alive. She knocked, expecting Julian's warm greeting. Instead, Penny opened the door, her expression glacial. Penny, is everything all right? Is your dad home? He's in the shower, the teenager replied, blocking the entrance. He doesn't know I found your texts. Olivia's stomach dropped. The messages weren't inappropriate, just daily check-ins, inside jokes, the digital intimacy of 2 people growing closer, but their existence alone was damning. Penny, I know this is confusing. You were supposed to help him, Penny cut in, her voice trembling. Not replace her. I would never try to replace your mother, Olivia said, her counselor instincts kicking in despite her personal involvement. No one could. Then why are you here all the time? Why does he talk about, you constantly, why? Her voice broke. Why did he take down Mom's picture from the hall table? Olivia hadn't known about the photograph. The revelation felt like a stone in her chest. May I come in? We should talk about this together with your father. Penny's jaw set stubbornly. My therapist at school says what you're doing is unethical, that you took advantage of him when he was vulnerable. The accusation stung with its partial truth. It's complicated, Penny, but I care about both of you very much. If you care, you'll leave us alone. Tears spilled down the girl's cheeks. He was finally starting to be my dad again, and now he's just distracted. By you. Behind Penny, Julian appeared in the hallway, hair still damp. Olivia? I thought I heard... He registered his daughter's tears, Olivia's stricken expression. What's happening? Ask her, Penny said, pushing past him toward the stairs. Ask her about ethics and taking advantage of grieving people. Julian's confused. Gaze met Olivia's. What is she talking about? The conversation that followed was excruciating. Seated in the living room where family photos, including Sophia's, still lined the mantel, Julian listened as Olivia explained the professional standards she'd violated, the ethical boundaries she'd crossed. I should have waited longer, referred you permanently to another counselor. Made a cleaner break, she concluded, hands twisted in her lap. Julian was quiet for a long moment. So, what are you saying? That what's between us isn't real? That it's some transference phenomenon? No, Olivia said quickly. What I feel for you is real. But the circumstances brought us together, he finished. I don't regret that. Penny does. Olivia looked toward the stairs where the teenager had disappeared. And she's not wrong to question it. Julian leaned forward, elbows on his knees. She lost her mother. Of course she's protective of her memory, of our family unit. But she's 14. She doesn't get to decide who I... He stopped, recalibrated. Who I care about. But she does get to feel safe in her healing process, Olivia countered gently. And right now, I'm threatening that. The truth settled between them. Outside, snow began to fall, coating the world in deceptive purity. "So what now?" Julian asked, the vulnerability in his voice reminiscent of their first meeting. Olivia placed the wrapped book on the coffee table. "Now I step back. Give you both space to figure out what you need." "What if what I need is you?" The rawness of his question made her chest ache. "Then it will still be true after Penny has had time to process." Olivia rose, gathering her coat. "This isn't about denying what's between us, Julian. It's about doing it right." As she reached the door, Julian called after her. "Olivia, was your director wrong about us seeing each other?" She turned, taking in the man who had unexpectedly become so important to her. "The ethical guidelines exist for good reasons," she said carefully, "but they don't account for every human complexity." She left without a goodbye, snow melting under her boots as she returned to her car. That night, she drafted a formal self-report to the ethics committee of her licensing board, detailing her relationship with Julian and requesting a review. Her hand shook as she signed it. Shattered trust, the ethics hearing room was sterile and fluorescent, designed to strip away comfort or pretense. Olivia sat before the 5-person panel, her credentials and career hanging in the balance. 6 weeks had passed since she'd left Julian's house in the snow. 6 weeks of professional purgatory, restricted to administrative duties at the community center, prohibited from client contact. 6 weeks without Julian or Penny. "Ms. Reed, would you characterize your relationship with Mr. Mercer as romantic in nature?" The committee chair, Dr. Winslow, peered at her over half-moon glasses. "Our relationship evolved after he was no longer my client," Olivia replied carefully. "But yes, there were romantic feelings involved." "Yet you continued to see his daughter socially, correct? A minor who had been present in your therapeutic setting?" Olivia's throat tightened. "Yes. That was an error in judgment." A sympathetic-looking committee member leaned forward. "Your record has been exemplary until now, Ms. Reed. 15 years without a single complaint. What happened here?" What happened? Olivia thought. Life happened. Loneliness, connection, the messy reality that ethical guidelines tried to contain in neat paragraphs. "I believed I was maintaining appropriate boundaries by ensuring Mr. Mercer transferred to another counselor," she explained, "but I failed to consider the broader implications for his daughter and the appearance of impropriety." The door at the back of the room opened, drawing all eyes. Julian stood there, expression determined. "I apologize for the interruption," he said, "but I'm named in these proceedings and I have something to say." Dr. Winslow frowned. "Mr. Mercer, this is an internal professional review, not a court hearing. You weren't called to testify. With respect, you're deciding the professional fate of someone based on her relationship with me." "I should have some input." The committee members exchanged glances. 5 minutes, Dr. Winslow conceded. Julian approached the front of the room, stopping beside Olivia without looking at her. She breathed in the familiar scent of his cologne, fighting the urge to reach for his hand. "Olivia Reed didn't take advantage of me," he began. "If anything, I pursued her, knowing it put her in a difficult position professionally. She consistently maintained boundaries during our therapeutic relationship." "Mr. Mercer," another committee member interjected, "the ethical guidelines require a minimum 2-year cooling-off period before a romantic relationship can be considered between former therapist and client. Ms. Reed waited approximately 2 months." Julian nodded. "I understand that. What I'm saying is that the responsibility should be shared, and the context matters." He finally turned to look at Olivia, his eyes conveying what he couldn't say aloud. "Ms. Reed helped me find my way back to living. She reminded me how to be present for my daughter. Whatever mistakes were made in the timing of our personal relationship, her professional impact was transformative." "Thank you for your statement, Mr. Mercer," Dr. Winslow said, making a note. "Is there anything else?" Julian hesitated. "Yes, My daughter is outside. She's asked to speak to the committee as well. Olivia's head snapped up. Julian, no, she shouldn't be involved in this. It wasn't my idea, he said quietly. She insisted. Penny entered looking older than her 14 years, her posture straight and determined. She carried a folder clutched against her chest. Penny Mercer, Dr. Winslow confirmed. At her nod, he continued, You understand these are sensitive professional proceedings? I understand that you're deciding whether Ms. Reed should be punished for caring about my dad, Penny replied with teenage directness. And I have some things to say about that. Olivia held her breath, preparing for Penny's condemnation. Instead, the girl placed her folder on the table and removed several sheets of paper. These are my journal entries from before Dad met Ms. Reed and after, she explained. My school counselor encouraged me to keep track of my feelings about Mom's death. She handed the papers to Dr. Winslow. I was mad when I found out about them. I felt like Dad was betraying Mom. But then I read back through these and realized something. Penny turned to face Olivia directly. You made him better, and that made me better. I was so focused on what we'd lost that I couldn't see what we might find. The simplicity of her statement brought tears to Olivia's eyes. I'm not saying it wasn't weird, Penny continued with trademark teenage bluntness. It was. It still is. Kind of. But Ms. Reed never tried to be my mom. She just helped me remember that I still had a dad. After they left, the committee deliberated for an hour. Their decision was a compromise, a formal reprimand, 6 months of supervised practice, and mandatory ethics continuing education. Not career-ending, but a permanent mark on her record. As Olivia left the building, Julian and Penny waited by the steps. You didn't have to do that, she told them, emotionally drained. Yes, we did, Julian replied. Family stands up for each other. The word family hung in the air between them, a possibility, not a promise. Reclaiming balanced summer arrived with the scent of freshly cut grass and new beginnings. Olivia unpacked books in her new office, a private practice space she'd leased after completing her supervision period. The ethics violation had closed. Certain doors, but opened unexpected ones. Leaving the community center had been bittersweet, but necessary. A knock at the open door made her turn. Julian stood there, holding a potted plant. Traditional office warming gift, he said, setting it on the windowsill. Supposedly impossible to kill, but don't test that theory. Olivia smiled, maintaining the careful distance they'd established over the past months. After the ethics hearing, they'd agreed to step back, not ending what was between them, but pausing to let wounds heal and new foundations form. How's Penny doing with the college visits? She asked, arranging pencils on her desk. Excited, terrified, typical pre-senior year emotions. Julian helped her hang a diploma on the wall. She's leaning toward film studies now. Says directing the school play this spring gave her the bug. She has a good eye for storytelling, Olivia agreed, remembering how proudly Julian had shown her the video of Penny's production, from a distance, through texts and emails, maintaining the boundaries they'd all agreed upon. They worked in companionable silence, transforming the sterile space into something welcoming. Finally, with the last bookshelf organized, Julian turned to her. I've been thinking about our timing, he said. How everything happened in the wrong order. Olivia leaned against her desk. There's probably no right order for what we went through. Maybe not. But I've been wondering what would have happened if we'd met differently. If I'd just been a guy at a coffee shop and you'd just been a woman reading a book I admired. We'll never know, Olivia said softly. Julian stepped closer, still maintaining a respectful distance. Actually, I have a proposition about that. He reached into his pocket and withdrew a small, wrapped package. This isn't what you think, he assured her as she hesitantly accepted it. Open it. Inside was a leather-bound journal. On the first page, he'd written, the new beginning. "I thought we could start over," Julian explained, "not denying what brought us together, but not letting it define us either. The ethics guidelines say 2 years. It's been almost 1. I'm willing to wait another year if that's what it takes. To do this right." Olivia traced the embossed cover of the journal. "And this? I thought we could write to each other. Old-fashioned letters. Get to know each other properly, without rushing. By the time we're ready to try again, we'll have built something solid." The thoughtfulness of the gesture, acknowledging both the professional standards she valued and the connection they shared, moved her deeply. "And Penny?" Julian smiled. "It was her idea, actually. She said if we're going to be a thing eventually, we should do it properly this time." "A thing," Olivia repeated, amused by the teenage terminology. Her words, not mine. His expression grew serious. "I would have used love." The word hung between them, honest, unadorned. "I'd like that," Olivia said finally. "The letters, the waiting, the doing it right." Julian nodded, visibly relieved. "Good. That's good." He turned to leave, then paused, at the door. "One more thing. Penny's graduation is in 13 months. Would you consider being there? Not as my date, just as someone who matters to us." Olivia thought of the journey they'd traveled, from the fractured people they'd been when they first met to who they were becoming. The mistakes made, the trust broken and painstakingly rebuilt. "I'd be honored," she said. As Julian left, Olivia opened the journal to its blank pages. So much yet to be written. So much time to get it right. She took a pen from her desk and began. "Dear Julian, today I opened my own practice. It feels like coming home to myself after a long journey away." Outside. Her window, summer light filtered through leaves, casting patterns of shadow and illumination across her new beginning.